Turkey and Saudi Arabia expected to come to Pakistan's aid against India if there's an exchange of fire between those two. So they're getting into things maybe they haven't fully thought through and don't fully understand.
Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Turkey signed a mutual defence pact this week with a NATO-style Article 5 that an attack on one of them would be seen as an attack on all. This comes at a time when nations in the region feel much less safe due to the US-Iran war, which has led to attacks on some of the other countries in the Gulf. So let's discuss the significance of the deal with Sir Jeremy Greenstock, who was the United Kingdom's ambassador to the United Nations and also served as special representative to Iraq. Hello to you.
Morning, Adam.
It sounds a pretty big deal, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Turkey signing a mutual defence pact. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that they've gone this far and this formally. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Pakistan have been talking to each other quite regularly about events in the Middle East, particularly since the Iran conflict blew up from February. They are very worried about the advances Israel has been making with its hard power stance in the Middle East, and particularly its quite rough treatment of the Palestinian territory of Lebanon, of Syria. Pakistan, of course, has its primary concern on the security front with India and in Kashmir, which is blowing up at the moment in certain ways around elections. And all of those three countries have as a priority their internal domestic political control. But this is a move that signals the kind of things that countries are doing now that collective activity under the UN, collective defence arrangements are more difficult to keep going in an era of polarisation of cultural identity and politics. But they are following others who have set an example in this way, the Quad between India, Japan, the US and Australia, the Australia, UK, US Defence Pact. They, of course, have watched NATO for decades, but NATO is under pressure in various ways. So Turkey in particular, which is the only member of NATO amongst these three, is formalising its further stretch of relationships in the region. It has a 360-degree approach to its international relationships. But this is a very interesting development in the light of the Iran conflict and of what Israel has been doing over the last couple of years.
It's an interesting point you mentioned about Turkey being a member of NATO. Presumably that would suggest that if this mutual defence pact was activated as a result on Saudi Arabia or Pakistan and Turkey joined in the conflict, then NATO could find itself drawn into the conflict as an ally of Turkey.
That is theoretically a possibility under the NATO agreement. But I think NATO countries who always have a choice on whether to commit their forces in a particular situation or not will be very wary of promising Turkey anything like that. This is going to be explained by Turkey as a different arrangement with different objectives and different partners. So I think Turkey will understand that NATO members will want there to be a separation between this defence pact and the NATO treaty.
Do you think it could lead to nuclear proliferation? Because, of course, Pakistan controversially appears to be a nuclear power. Saudi Arabia has expressed interest in that direction. I don't know about Turkey, but, could that be one of the consequences?
I think security sector observers will be asking themselves that question. Pakistan has a history on this front. You remember the days of A.Q. Khan and his secretive exporting of nuclear military technology, including two elements in the Middle East. I think that Saudi Arabia's motivation for this defense pact, from their particular view in Riyadh, will have been accelerated by the conditions that the Americans have placed on American civil nuclear technology transfers to Saudi Arabia. They thought they had an agreement with Washington, but Washington then imposed the condition that they would only go forward if Saudi Arabia joined the Abraham Accords and had a normalization with Israel. And that's something that the Saudis do not want to do at this point, or perhaps for quite a long time into the future, while Israel is in its current stance with its neighbors. And Pakistan, theoretically again, could be an alternative source of nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. The Saudis and the Pakistanis have had a long security understanding and quite a close relationship on the military and security fronts for decades. Formalizing this brings in Turkey and is a statement on Saudi's approach to some of the problems in the Middle East at the moment. But it has a long history, and I can imagine a silent implication in what's been done here to the Americans. If you try and impose conditions on your nuclear technology coming our way, just remember we have alternatives.
Do you think this is an alliance that London and Washington and maybe Paris as well should be concerned about?
I don't see that they should necessarily be concerned as far as their own immediate defense and security interests are concerned. They will be watching this very closely. Israel will be talking to the Americans about it and will have its concerns, very strong concerns. Israel would much rather the Saudis developed civil nuclear capabilities under American auspices rather than Pakistani or any others. They have been watching the Saudi-Pakistani relationship for a very long time. Turkey and Israel have got into quite a difficult state in their bilateral relationship over Palestine, over Lebanon, over Israel's approach to the neighborhood. So I think that Europe and America will be watching this very closely and asking all three of them what they mean by this, how far they will take it, why they've done it, and see if they can put some understanding of what the three countries want from this into their diplomatic approaches.
Difficult question, but we know there have been hostilities between Pakistan and India. What do you think the chances are of that escalating into a much larger regional war? Because, of course, one has China as well as a kind of ally of Pakistan.
I think we're always worried that India and Pakistan could escalate their differences at any particular moment. The relationship is not particularly good at the moment. Kashmir is suffering violence, particularly on the Pakistani-controlled side of Kashmir. The Indians regard Kashmir as an internal Indian problem and will be watching what goes on in the Pakistani side of Kashmir very closely. I don't think that this will be allowed to escalate. They've both got their own internal concerns and other priorities. And although, yes, the India-China relationship on the green line between them in the Himalayas can always move into tense periods, I think both India and China will very much want to avoid any escalation in their relationship. So, no, to your particular question, Adam, I don't think there's a danger at the moment of this escalating into a wider war. But you're asking a question against the background of this new defense pact. What if there was a flare-up between India and Pakistan? Our Turkey and Saudi Arabia expected to come to Pakistan's aid against India if there's an exchange of fire between those two. So they're getting into things maybe they haven't fully thought through and don't fully understand. So that will be something to watch very carefully into the future if this defence pact looks as though it's steadying into a consistent long-term relationship.
Sir Jeremy Greenstock, thank you very much indeed for speaking to Times Radio.